This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll. I'm here with Brad Chandler. What's going on, Brad?
Hey, man. Great to see you.
Hey, thanks. Glad to have you here. So today's going to be pretty interesting. Brad's done over 4,000 deals, and he's a lot of other interesting things to talk about. So, hey, Brad, why don't you give a little background on what all you're involved with?
Yeah, man. So in ninth grade, I read a book on how to buy real estate with no money down, and knew I wanted to do real estate at that time. Went to undergrad, went to graduate school, and in late 2002, an investor bought my neighbor's house, and I went over and talked to him, and he goes, yeah, I buy houses at 30% below market, I fix them up, and I resell them. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do that. So that was like November, December 2002. Man, it was hard, right? It took me 8 months to find my first deal because I had no idea what I was doing. I'd show up to these RIA meetings, the Real Estate Investor Associations, and all these people are making all this money, and I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. So each day that went by, I got more and more persistent. I was doing everything for putting out We Buy Houses signs, knocking on doors, you name it, direct mail. Didn't have any money. I had a negative $80,000 net worth because I just graduated from graduate school. Took me 8 months to find my first deal, Brian. In July and August, I bought 6 houses somehow. And then in October, I came home from work and told my wife, we had a new son at the time. I guess he had just been born. I go, I just quit my job and I'm starting Express Home Buyers. And she's like, what? I was like, it's going to be fine. 20 years later, it's been fine. We've done 4,000 houses, primarily in DC, Maryland, Virginia. We've bought houses all over the country. We operate in LA now. So yeah, life is good. Life is good. So that's what I'm up to on the real estate side.
That's nice. And you know what? That's funny. You said it took 8 or 9 months. Like, what were you thinking there?
I was thinking that literally, Brian, like, if they can do it, I can do it. I mean, it was tough and I wanted to give up. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving up. Like, real estate is the way to make a bunch of money. And I started the business to make a bunch of money. And why did I want to make a bunch of money? Because at the time I didn't feel worthy, and my subconscious mind was telling me, hey, if you can make a lot of money, and I think this is why a lot of entrepreneurs get into the business, is to make a bunch of money. I think it's why star athletes oftentimes are star athletes, because they have something to prove. Now, everything in life is a double-edged sword, right? It allowed me to make millions of dollars, but it also cost me 2 marriages and $9 million of business mistakes. I made 5 business mistakes that cost me $9 million. So in the last 20 months, I went through this major life transformation trying to get my son help for his anxiety. And I realized that I had some unresolved childhood trauma. And in a 3-hour session, my life completely changed. And what I figured out so much, I figured out that I started the company, Express Home Buyers, because of money, to prove my worth. And now I've shifted my impact of my company, and then I started a coaching company. It's the focus is now impact. So we're going to have our best year ever, right? Is that coincidence? No, because I wasn't focused on the money. I was focused on how can I make my product the best? How can I make my employees, my team members the best? How can I give my best return to these sellers and these investors? And when I made that switch from trying to prove myself through money to making an impact, everything in my life has changed in an amazing way.
Yeah, and that's an interesting topic too, because you're right. When you first get into anybody first gets into business, it's about the money. You see the shiny objects, like, hey, I want to make a lot of money, and then like say you hit the $1 million mark, you think you're gonna feel like $1 million. It's like, okay, nothing really. I got some money. My life's money does make life a little bit easier, but it's not like you hit there and like the skies open up and the sun's shining on you. So you're right. You have to look at different things.
Brian, that was me, right? I made millions of dollars. I gave millions of dollars back, but I was still in a pretty good position. I owned a 42-foot yacht. I had a luxury vehicle, multiple houses. And was I happy? Yeah, I was happy, but I lacked self-love. And I lacked self-love because of these untruths I told myself since I was a child. And if you look at the world and you look at people's business problems, relationship problems, weight problems, on an anxiety, depression, everything. I mean, I've spent thousands of hours studying this stuff in the last almost 2 years. Everything can be tracked back to the stress and the trauma that you went through as a child. Your brain did what it was supposed to do. It came up with a story, a coping mechanism to get you through that tough time. Well, at 6 years old, when something bad happens to you, you go, well, I must be bad. This is why it's happening. That's your survival brain helping you survive. At 46 years old, when your subconscious mind is saying you're bad, so you better go open this market and buy this thing and buy this yacht and buy this car. It doesn't work. It doesn't serve people at all. So that's what I do now. I help people find freedom and happiness through self-love and self-compassion by going back to their childhood, figuring out what those stories are, and just reversing them. And it doesn't take years. It doesn't take months. It takes like hours. And I've seen I saw it in my own life, and now I'm coaching people, and I'm seeing these major transformations in like 3 or 4 1-hour sessions. It's like incredible.
That's pretty cool. That's interesting. And you're right. It's all mindset. Like everything is mindset. It's like what you think.
Everything.
Yeah. It's like my reality is different than your reality because we do think different things. Like everyone is in their head. Like it's the same world. Like everyone's in the same world, but everyone's living in different realities because of their thoughts and what they believe.
You and I could be sitting at lunch having this conversation, right? And there could be someone doing something at a table next to us that is absolutely driving you batty, right? And I'm just like, what's the problem? It's just the way you think about everything. It's how do you have to come home every night and drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine to unwind? Do you find yourself like eating all the time? Are you constantly like arguing with your spouse? All of those things relate right back to the past, the childhood, when your brain was programmed, when it was formed. And here's the thing, Brian, I was a pretty smart guy. I am a pretty smart guy. I didn't know this shit existed. I was struggling my entire life, and I wasn't struggling to the level that some people are, that are 100 pounds obese, or that have, I had bad relationships for sure, but my life could have been a lot worse. I had a lot of resources. I've been trying my whole life to get better. I had no idea until I happened to run into someone that said, hey, we're on a Zoom call like this. And within the first 5 minutes, she goes, do you realize you have a tic? And I'm like, what is this lady talking about? She was like, you blink profusely when you talk about your childhood. You probably have unresolved childhood trauma. I'd called her to get help from my son. She's like, your unresolved childhood trauma is probably contributing to your son's anxiety. That's another thing that I've learned through this process. If you're listening to this and you've got a child with behavioral problems, do you know the first thing you should do? Go to the bathroom mirror and look in the mirror and see who you see. And that's the person who's responsible for your kid's behavioral problems. If you want them to get whole and get fixed, you've got to fix yourself. So
yeah. So she said you had a tic. Like, what was it from?
It was from any time she brought up my childhood and I started to talk, I would blink. I'm like, I'd be talking like this. And it was somehow my brain in its marvelous way, that was a coping mechanism. It must have started when I was a child and I never knew it until she pointed it out to me. And then since then I've told that story and I've had friends be like, oh my God, I do remember you blinking all the time.
That's crazy.
So
how'd you resolve it? Like, okay, so you look at it, you're like, okay, something happened to me in the past. Makes me blink subconsciously just because of whatever it is. Like, how do you resolve that?
So it's a simple process. It's the same thing that will resolve every single problem in your life. I had a client who had OCD so bad that she would pick at her heel to the point where she couldn't walk on it. It was so bad. And after 3 1-hour sessions, this was 6 months ago, she has not touched her heel since. What did we do? We did exactly what I said a couple minutes ago. We went back and we explored her childhood and we figured out what were the stories that she told herself, what were the feelings that came from the childhood stress that she was involved in, and then we told a new story. And then through neuroplasticity, neural reprogramming, your brain is literally capable of growing new neural pathways and new neurons. So I create a recording, and for 30 days in a relaxed state, and your brain is in an alpha state as you're going to sleep. That's a state where you can take in suggestion. You listen to this recording for 30 days and your brain literally changes. So shit that used to bother you, shit that used to bother me, doesn't bother me at all anymore. I'm no longer in a triggered state. And for business owners out there, my buddy Eugene Choi has an amazing podcast that talks about most entrepreneurs spend 75% of their time in a fight or flight mode. What is fight or flight? It's because the trauma that is unresolved from your childhood, until you separate from that, your brain doesn't know the difference between yesterday and 30 years ago. So you stay in this fight or flight mode. When you're in a fight or flight mode, Brian, if there's a tiger chasing you, do you think you're going to be able to come up with really good copy for a sales letter, do you think you're going to be able to think about how is my cash flow going to impact things in the next, or properties being sold going to impact my cash flow in the next 60 days? No. So entrepreneurs don't even know, like, why do I have chaos in my business? Why aren't things going well? Well, if your brain is in a fight or flight state for 75% of your day, you're not accessing most of your creative intelligence.
Yeah, and you're so right too. I even looked at that on the opposite side. So like I got into exercising a lot this year, right? And like all business owners, I'm stressed out half the time. So if I push my body to the limits, I can only focus on the one thing. Like while I'm exercising, same as a lion, and you're right. You can only focus on that thing, so you can't focus on other things. You're going to be, it's too tough, you know?
No. So they did this study at UCLA where they got 100 participants and they showed them pictures of people in a stress state, like angry, upset. It immediately triggered their monkey brain, their fight or flight response. Then this is an exercise everyone can use. So listen to this carefully. Then they asked the participants, explain what it is that you see. The second that they went to, I see anger, or they're feeling anger, they're feeling sadness, their brain shifted from the monkey state, fight or flight, to the executive thinking brain because they had to think, and it immediately pulled them out of the fight or flight. So when you find yourself in a triggered state, stop, pause, take a deep breath, and identify the emotion. What is it you're feeling? I am feeling sad right now. I am feeling nervous. Because most of us as a child didn't get to express our emotions or give ourselves compassion for the emotion. So you don't say, I am angry, because that's an identity. Identities don't change, or they take a long time. Feelings come and go. So your brain wants to hear, I am feeling, and then you sit with that feeling. You give yourself compassion. You go, it's okay, Brian. Say it to yourself. It's okay that I'm feeling sad. It's going to pass, and then let it pass. And then you'll pull yourself out of that triggered state way faster. And the reason that you're sad, if you're having an argument with your wife, it's never about you leaving the toilet seat up or her not doing your favorite thing. It always goes back to your childhood, because your brain's going to go back to the worst time ever where someone did something similar and it made you feel a certain way. So you're like, oh, my wife didn't pick me up from the mall on time. She must not love me. No. Maybe she had a flat tire. Maybe she had a bad day. Maybe she had to, go pick up your kid. But our brains are supposed to keep us alive, go to the worst thing ever. You shake a bush, a lion bites you, right? So now for 30 years, 100 years, when you see that bush, you're like, there might be a lion. Look out for the lion. So that's what, we don't even know this stuff. Like, this is all stuff that I just learned over the last 2 years. That's just like, oh my God, all these arguments I had with my two wives, the laying in my bed until 3 o'clock in the morning, couldn't sleep because I was so pissed off. I was doing that for shit that happened when I was 6 years old.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because you're talking about not necessarily what happened, but what you told yourself and what your story is when that happened, right?
Yes. So one of my mentors, Brian, says, the trauma isn't the actual event that happened to you. That is a traumatic event. The trauma is what you tell yourself about that event. And when shit happens to us, when we're molested, we're raped, we're beaten, we're told we're no good, what do? We tell ourselves a story. Well, this must be happening because I did something to contribute. I'm wrong, I'm bad. And then you keep that in your head until you do the work. Some people never do the work. My father died 5 years ago. He never did the work. He was always this sad little kid inside of him trying to prove himself through buying fancy cars and flying first class and putting suits on every day. He died. He missed the whole meaning of life because he was never given an opportunity to say, hey, and I don't know if he would have taken it, but yeah, it's a marvelous thing when you can literally change your life and change your children's life and change your relationship in your business by just changing the way that you think about things.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because thoughts are powerful.
Yeah, they're everything.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to turn into what you think about.
Yeah. And your thoughts are the only real thing you can control in this world. We don't control anything else. You want to have a wedding? Well, it might rain. You want to go to to work today? You might be half an hour late. There might be an accident. Like, there's so little we control. And so you get control by giving up control. Let the universe do its thing. I don't have anything bad ever happen to me anymore, Brian, because how do I know? My second wife 30 days into COVID, wakes up, rolls over, says, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And I'm like, okay, I've heard this too many times, so I'm not going to fight this time. She left for 45 days. I'm like, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. I look back now, and it was one of the top 5 things that ever happened to me. Like, I wouldn't have made this shift. I wouldn't have been this person. So you can't even just let life happen. That doesn't mean you sit on your couch all day, but don't try to make part of happiness is not trying to make situations be what you think they are. Just let them be as they are. Like, you can either be pissed off or you can be happy, but guess what? It's going to rain. You're going to have a flat tire anyway. So why be pissed off about it? Why not just go deal with it and be like, okay, there's a reason this is happening. Nothing in this world happens without everything happens on purpose.
That's true. What would you say to the person that's like always bummed out? Like, so I guess you have different stages on where people are, right? So you got people that are like in their thought process that are in the middle, they go in and out, and then you got people that are like super negative. Like, how do you break that negativity and that people are like always Debbie Downing?
So here's the thing, Brian. Are there people at different stages? Yes. So you had me that was just like pretty happy-go-lucky, but something always was off. And then you have a client that I took on like four weeks ago that told me that had I not taken a session with her on Saturday, she was going to check herself into the hospital for depression. She tried everything for 15 years. She had been hospitalized multiple times, on drugs, therapy, everything. So we're at different levels. We're way different levels because I was never, ever considered checking myself into the hospital, right? Never had any suicidal thoughts, never. But the fix is the same exact thing. Why did she feel the way she did and I feel the way I did? Because we were telling ourselves untruths about who we were as human beings. And everyone listening to this is enough. You don't believe you're enough, but you're enough. You were born enough, and in your essence, you're enough. Your imperfect parents and imperfect caregivers took it out of you, didn't take it out of you, created filters. It's still inside of you. Everything you ever needed to be happy is inside of you right now. You just need to clear those filters of pain off from the trauma and stories that you've been telling yourself all these years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, so let's talk about being in a real estate space because we're going into a turmoil market, you know?
Yeah.
Uncertainty. You know, a lot of people are, I don't know what's going to happen. The sky's going to fall. What do you recommend to investors in this space and pivoting in mindset, things like that?
Yeah, so I have a partner, a wonderful partner. I mean, we've had a marvelous relationship for 19 years, and he's one of those warriors, right? I talk to him all the time. Like, we're experiencing the same thing. We both own the company. We both have, you know, our personal guarantees on loans and stuff. But if you go into that fight or flight freaking out, what can you really do, right? It's going to be interest rates at 7%. Can I control that? No. So if I can't control it, what's the best thing that I can do? Just impact the things that I can change. So worrying about it, look, let's say that the worst case happens and I've got to shut down my company in 6 months. It's exactly what I said about the flat tire. It's going to happen. I'm not going to lay on my couch and watch it happen. I'm going to try really hard. But these next 6 months, I can either, you know, yell at my kids, kick the dog, eat like shit, drink a bunch, or I can be like, well, it's going to happen anyway. If I'm calm and I'm in a state of thinking, this is the universe doing its thing, do you think I'm in a better position to make changes and think through things than the person who's like, what am I going to do? Oh my God, this is going to be, oh my God. And if I lose everything, I've got no identity. I'm nothing. I'm at the point in my life where if I lose everything, yeah, it would suck, but I'm still going to be happy. I'm still going to go around helping people change their lives. So take all my shit. I won't like it, but I wouldn't be like I was 10 years ago because all of my identity was around my shit and who I was. My identity now is a soulful, loving human being that is on this earth to impact other people.
Yeah, and that's so true too, especially like how you're talking with the way you're thinking and the way you're acting, especially when you have a team, you're a leader, things like that. If you're positive and keeping a rational head, thinking things through versus wigging out, that's going to impact that right there will impact your business in a positive way versus wigging out. Right, you're not gonna be thinking properly, flight or flight, and be negative. You know, and your team will already see that too.
Absolutely. The only time wigging out is good is to literally to protect you physically, right? If you're being attacked. How often are we physically attacked? But we operate like we are all the time. it's never good to freak out. It's not good for your stress. It's not good for your body. It's not good for the people around you. It's not good for your kids. It's not good for your employees. So look, it's going to happen regardless of how you feel. So the more at peace you can feel, the better decisions you're going to make, and the less likely that you're going to get into a bad place.
100%. So now, if anybody wants help and wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect?
I've got a great video of my story, a little 3-minute video I like to people watch at bradchandler.com. And then I put out daily videos of all of this stuff, how to be happy, how to process things when you argue with your wife. bradchandler.com/contact has every single whatever social media platform you're on, I'm on. So go follow me, start watching my stuff, and just know that if you're suffering in any way, shape, or form, you're overweight, you have a bad relationship, you have anxiety, depression, you drink too much, you eat too, whatever it is, you're an addict of something, it doesn't have to be that way. I was in therapy for years and years. I've been to countless marriage counseling sessions, and typical therapy doesn't always work, right? So if you're that person like, man, I've been to therapy. This isn't therapy. I promise you, this isn't therapy. This is a program that I have studied under some of the best in the world. I've taken pieces from it, right? And it's called, I'm a transformation coach. So I can literally, in 3 to 5 hours of your time, completely transform if, number one, you really want to change, and if, number two, you have a willingness to look at things from a different perspective. We can radically change your situation. Radically.
It's interesting, especially with such a short period of time. Yes, so anybody listening, if you're interested in chatting with Brad, check out his website. It's bradchandler.com. Check out the video, hit him up on social media, see what he's got going on, and reach out.
Yeah, there's a button on there, schedule a call. I'll help you for a free 30-minute call. Whether you work with me or not, it's not going to make a difference in my life. I'll help you regardless. Just know that if you're suffering and you're struggling in any area of your life, like, there is a solution. I'm living proof. My clients are living proof. My mentors who've been collectively working at this for probably 100 years have helped thousands and thousands of people through this. So there is a proven process. It works, and you can go from complete suffering to complete freedom and happiness. And I mean, it's hard. It sounds a bit hard to believe, but in like 3 to 5 hours, and it's quite amazing.
That's cool, man. Hey, Brad, we're glad to have you on. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I love coming on talking about this stuff. You can probably tell.
Oh yeah, I like the energy. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Also, until next time, get out there, crush it, and close some deals. Thanks, Brad.